Hi, everybody, and welcome back. This week, I'm talking with Jennifer Brown, who's the author of the forthcoming. I don't want to mess it up, and I always mess up these titles, but the Lost Book of Elizabeth Barton.
Yep.
This is your fifth book, right? Is that correct?
It's my fifth book, but the first four are academic, and this is my first novel. Yeah.
Okay. Similar. I'm so fascinated with what you study. So you're a dean
Mhm.
at Bentley, is that correct?
Family
Okay.
University, yes.
And tell me about, because when I first saw the cover, which is so great, it comes out April, is it 26th?
April 14th.
14th, April 14th, with St. Martin's Press, which is a division of Macmillan. And the cover's so fabulous. And I hope this isn't bad or wrong to say, but it screams Handmaid's Tale to me, which
Oh,
that's a
interesting.
calling
Yeah,
to me. I
yeah,
mean, I don't know if that has an effect. I'm sure it does, has an
yeah,
effect
yeah.
one way or the other. But Jean, the wonderful Jean Stahl, said, you have got to hear the story of how this idea for this novel came to be. And when I read the back cover copy, I was like, I'm not confused in a bad way, but I just thought, I got to get into Jennifer's brain because what? So tell us about this. Like, how did this idea come to be? What, just start maybe with, and we don't
Yeah.
really talk a lot about the premise of books on this show. We talk more about the process. But to give that context, I would love it if you could give just kind of a context.
Yeah, so the very basic premise is that it's a dual timeline novel, and one timeline takes place in Tudor England and is based on a real historical figure, Elizabeth Barton,
Mhm.
um, who had visions. And one of her visions was about Henry VIII, and he had her executed because of the visions.
So that's a true
That is
story.
true. That
Okay.
is all true. And then the modern timeline is that a academic finds a book that did in truth exist of Elizabeth Barton's prophecies that has been lost. We There are no surviving copies that we know of.
Okay.
And in this modern timeline, she finds a surviving copy, and it leads to a kind of murder mystery in the present day timeline. So it moves back and forth between the two.
And your academic area of expertise and fascination and passion is it medieval?
It is medieval
Okay.
women who have
Mhm.
visions, right? That's what I've been writing about.
Listen, if
Yeah,
this doesn't prove that there is a niche for everything,
it's true.
it's medieval women who have visions.
And
Okay,
there's
so
there's actually quite a few of them, so
really?
yeah, yeah. There
Okay.
were, and they spanned centuries, and some of them were really, powerful, politically powerful women, and some were
So
not.
did this come about from you thinking like knowing that this book or whatever, there are no surviving versions, and did you just think one day, what if?
Yeah, one part of the story is and writing is that I think this is a story about what happens when women's mental load is lifted a little bit,
Yeah,
which
what does
is
happen?
apparently you write a novel. Um,
Okay, because that's adding to my mental load, writing a
yeah.
novel. So, but carry on.
Well, if you're not intending to write a novel, that
Okay.
hasn't been something that you've been trying to do. I went to a conference. I went to England for a conference
Mhm.
um, on medieval women, actually, and the conference got canceled because there was a train strike, and nobody could get to London, and most people were coming from other parts of England. And I had a week in a hotel without any professional obligations, without any familial obligations. And I was doing a little work at the British Library and was talking to a friend, and she said, "Oh, have you ever wondered, like, what massive discovery would you love to make in your area of
Oh.
expertise?" And I was like, "Oh, I would love to find this lost book of prophecies about Elizabeth Barton. Um, and it would make a great novel, and somebody should write that novel." And she was like, "Well, you should write that
Mhm.
novel." I'm not a fiction writer. Um, and then I just started playing around with it, and
Okay.
that's how it happened. Yeah, I
So as
wrote about a
someone who
third of the novel in that week.
you say that one more time, you did
I
what with it?
wrote about a third of
Are
the
you
novel in that week
really?
in London. Yeah.
So, is it possible that, you almost, like, reverse psychologied yourself into it? Because you just said, like, I can't write it. I don't know if you said can't, but I'm not
Yeah.
a novel writer. I'm not so, did you
I
just
think
not
I just
feel
had no pressure on
That's
me,
what I was just
right?
gonna say. Did
Yeah.
you just feel no pressure whatsoever?
None whatsoever. Nobody was expecting me to write it. I wasn't even expecting myself to write it. I was just sort of playing around with what that would look like and
Mm.
having the time to do it. And there was a pub in the first floor of my hotel, and I'd get a beer and some chips and be writing in the evening. And I had all the plans I had made that week had fallen apart because
Yeah.
nobody could get there for the conference, and so
So did you because this wasn't planned, was there any kind of an outline, or did you just start kind of g were you, like, full on
no
pacing?
outline. Also, although there were like a few things that helped me kind of shape it. So I had this idea about what would happen if an academic found Elizabeth Barton's lost
Mhm.
book, um and there on the Twitter feed that was going around at that time, some professors were talking about the fact that the annual classics convention was happening in the same hotel as the Miss Universe pageant, and what a
Oh, delightful.
division of
Yeah,
people that was in the same hotel, right? Um, so
that
I
could
took
make for
that as
some fun
my
elevator rides.
totally.
Yeah.
Well, so one of my opening scenes is this academic in an elevator at a hotel with Miss Universe contestants. Um, and
Like,
and
that's stuff that you
yeah,
just can't make up. It
not
just it
makeup.
happens, and you think the scene has just created itself.
Right, that's right. I was like, this is a chance to, really to play, to have fun. Like, what
Yeah.
would it be like? And then so that was the first part, and then I started thinking, well, what was Elizabeth thinking? And then I kind of wrote the second part, and then I just sort of went back and forth, and I never had any outline um, at all. I mean, I really wrote the whole novel kind of in that format, and then in the revision process, went back and
Okay.
fixed things that didn't make sense or seeded things earlier that would become.
How did you, bridge the like, not bridge the gap, but cross the bridge between, "Okay, so I didn't think I was a novel writer. I didn't think I'd ever write a novel. I seemingly just wrote at least all or part. Now what do I do?" What how did you get into the, "Do I need an agent?"
Yeah.
Obviously well, not obviously. Did you end up getting an agent or
I did.
okay,
So the first thing I did was I sent it to a few people, including the woman I had had, drinks with that first night, and was like, does this sound like it's actually something? Because
right.
I'm starting to feel like it might be something, but I have no idea. And people were saying, yeah, this actually does sound like something. And one of the friends I sent it to had written a book, not a novel, but
Mhm,
she had written
mhm.
a another book and had an agent. And she said, my agent's not the right person, but I actually am a mom friend of another agent that I think is the right person. And I'm if you don't mind, I'd like to introduce you to her. And she did, and that agent signed me, and
Wow, okay.
that's how
So at
it.
that point, had you written the whole book?
By that point, I had written the whole book.
Okay,
Yep.
alright. So then what happens after that? So the agent signs, and then how was the creation of a proposal from
Yeah,
'cause you're
so the
kinda just
actually
like
I know, and it
yeah,
worked, and I almost feel bad telling this story because I know it's so atypical, and I know so many people have put years of their blood, sweat, and tears in something, and everything moved very kind of seamlessly and easily for me.
yeah.
But I will say,
Mhm,
in my defense, um, that I had a practice of writing already as an academic, and
mhm.
I have, you know, written other books, and I had a practice of. There wasn't any historical research I needed to do because I already knew all the history. I had done years
Right.
of historical research, and I also had a practice of being very, very thick-skinned about revision and taking criticism and So I worked with my agent for several months on revision, and
Okay.
um, and really she helped me whip it into shape because
Yeah.
she really had a good sense of what it needed to be. Um,
And they
and
do these days, by the way. So many agents act more in an editor role than people realize.
right. And she had an editorial background, so
Okay.
she really
Okay.
knew what she was doing, and it definitely I needed it. I mean, I had not
As we all
plotted it
do.
out.
Yeah.
I hadn't done it before. I had never taken a creative writing, you know, class like
Yeah.
it was. So I was really grateful for her editorial help. And we went on submission, and St. Martin's Press and editor at St. Martin's Press bought it, and then I worked with
Okay.
her for a few
Okay.
months. And
For how many months?
um, from start to finish, I think it was I think it was about 3 years from the
Okay.
first writing to
Mhm.
it's coming out um in a couple weeks. So
And, people have all different stories, and I hear you because I don't have a story like that, but I have had other authors on this podcast who got a deal in the most seemingly simple way. Like,
yeah,
it almost felt too easy, and then they actually got a deal without an agent and then went back and got an agent, and they feel bad about it because and I guess the way I feel about that is everybody has it all comes around at some point. So
yeah,
some people have really e air quote easy experiences first, and then their second or third book is much more difficult. Some people have a really hard start, and then their second book, they get a 4-book deal for the
right.
next round. I mean, it's so just
It's
is
true.
what that's your
Yeah,
journey. That's just
it is what it is.
what it is. Um, what surprised you as someone who didn't necessarily envision herself in this space? What was surprising about the process, good or bad, or just maybe not even
Yeah,
look
I
that
mean,
way?
one thing I loved in contrast to academic
Mhm.
writing was, that if something didn't fit my argument, I could just make it up, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I'm in a field that,
Yeah.
you know, medieval literature, sometimes it would take me a week to get a footnote right where I was
Oh
looking
God.
at manuscripts and, um, calling up articles and
Yeah.
double checking dates, right? So,
Mhm.
so all of a sudden I was in this freedom
Mhm.
to change facts, to eliminate historical figures that I felt were inconvenient to the story.
You're just like, I don't like him. We're
Right,
going to remove him. Yeah.
right.
I
Uh,
read that was it that you first had a fascination with Chaucer or
I did,
Chaucer?
yes,
Am I
yep.
saying that wrong?
Chaucer, yep.
Chaucer. I knew something didn't sound right the minute it came out of my mouth. I was like, now how old were you when that happened? And what was it?
So that was in college, and I was
Okay.
I mean, I knew I was an English major, and
Okay.
I like most English majors, did it because I really loved to read and
Mhm.
particular books, and that was what I was interested in. And then I took to satisfy a requirement, a course
Yep.
on medieval literature and on Chaucer, and it was so crazy in some ways. I mean, it was funny and sexual
Uh-huh.
and unexpected,
What's
and
the Chaucer that's most
the Canterbury
the
Tales.
can of yes.
Mhm.
Okay. So
Yep.
when I read that, I had a weird flashback, but I couldn't remember what it was to. So now I have
Probably
to
high school or college, like
correct. I
yeah,
think it was
yeah,
high school, and I have to dig back, and I'll do that later, but to figure out because it was the Canterbury Tales.
yeah. And the Canterbury Tales are wonderful, and they're really varied in their genres. Yep, that was the kind of gateway drug
Mhm.
into medieval literature, uh, and I did my master's on Chaucer, on the women in the Canterbury Tales.
Okay.
And then when I went to graduate school, I knew I wanted to study medieval literature. I knew I was
Mhm.
interested in women, and I had an advisor there who said, you know, you really should be looking at some of these religious women and their visions, and then that was this other and entire door opening up, and at that time there wasn't a ton of work on medieval women visionaries. It
Mhm.
was I'm like the second generation of scholars who really,
Mhm.
especially women scholars who worked on it. Um, and so that was exciting. There was a lot that hadn't been looked at or discussed very much.
So today, right, in this generation, it feels like there's a lot of focus on, well, what are you going to do with that degree? So this question
Mm,
isn't even a book question. This is like a passion question
yeah.
because my degree is in Japanese, which I never use except to say some explicit things sometimes that people don't know because those are the things I remember, but it's
Right.
been forever. And I remember when I was studying that and people would say, "What in the world are you gonna do with this? Like, this is not the most, um,
Practical.
practical." Thank you.
Yeah.
And one of my kids is an art major, and he hears this a lot as well. "What are you gonna do with this? This is not terribly." And so it feels very courageous to me to fall in love with something like medieval literature
Mm.
and just think, "I'm gonna figure it out." What did you know what you wanted to do with that? Did you wanna teach or
I think by the time I was in graduate school, I was expecting to teach.
Okay.
Although academia is hard to
Mhm,
find jobs in, and
mhm.
it's increasingly harder. And humanities jobs are even
Yeah,
harder.
yeah.
Um, so I think I have 2 answers to that question. One is I think I'm sure this is true with your degree too, that you learned to take something difficult and make it comprehensible,
Yeah.
to, really apply yourself to something that's strange and, right?
Yeah.
Critical thinking
Mhm.
skills,
For sure.
adaptability, good writing, right? I mean, those are applicable
Mhm.
to really anything, and I think it becoming increasingly important in this kind of AI world that there are people who know how to do those things and can look at things critically and write succinctly,
Something, right.
right, yeah,
Yeah.
and think creatively. So
Mm.
even the art
Sure,
major,
sure. Mhm.
that there's a lot of job applications that are not teaching the thing. Um, so that's on the one hand. For graduate school, I think you do have to have some sense of where you might go with it. But
Mhm.
I had colleagues in my cohort who do all kinds of things and work for nonprofits and
Yeah.
work for, they teach high school. So they're not really teaching a, a ton of medieval literature, but it's, part of their understanding of how
Yeah.
literature came about. Um, and again, I think I was extraordinarily lucky. I found a professor position right out of graduate school. I've had a series of them. Wasn't always teaching medieval literature, was,
Mhm.
teaching what needed to be taught in the English department, but
Okay.
always kept that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just as you going back to the book, as you make your way toward the release, a lot of people wonder, okay, when you're with a traditional house, how much marketing are they doing? How much are you doing? What surprised you? What is surprising you about that process on the traditional side? I'm totally agnostic when it comes to which is best as
Yeah.
far as publishing approaches because my God, it changes by the day, by the author, by the book, by where the sun is positioned relative to Pluto. Is Pluto a planet anymore? Like all these different things. But I'm often curious what traditionally published authors' experiences are as they ramp up toward their launch.
Yeah. So I on the one hand, I think they've been great. St. Martin's Press has been fabulous. I love like the cover. I love the
I
cover,
love the cover.
and
Mhm.
that was
Was
what
that
they
the
came
first
to.
cover that was
It was.
really?
Yeah, there was one or two tweaks that I suggested, but that they took, but nothing
Yeah.
major. They really did such a great job, and they've been great about sending me slides to put up on social media
Mhm.
and reads giveaways, things like that. So I'm
Sure.
really really glad that I don't have to do that.
Do all that. Yeah.
Yeah, and have set up some of my readings and launch readings for me too, which is great.
Okay.
Oh, my lights. My I
It's
have
right, you have to
I have to wave my arms around to keep
wave
my.
around, right.
Um, on the other hand, I'm doing a lot of legwork on my own, which I guess I don't know whether I don't again, like, I wasn't expecting to write a novel. I went into this without any sort of preconceived ideas about what the launch would look like.
Mhm.
Jean, I reached out to Jean, um, via Instagram because I had
Okay.
seen something that she had posted, and I had just moved to Boston, and I saw that she was in the area, and then we met, and she's been an amazing connector, connecting me to
She's such a
people.
great
Yeah,
Yeah, she's such a great supporter of
amazing.
authors.
Yeah.
Mhm.
She connected me to you, she connected me to another author in the area who's connected me to other bookstores, so I've been able to n
Is it Jessie
now
Fine?
no,
Okay. To connect
it's
Jessica Fine lives in the Boston area
uh,
too. She's
it's
a
Emily Franklin who has Love and
Oh,
Other Monsters coming out, who wrote,
okay.
um, uh, The Lioness
Okay.
of Boston is her
Mhm.
last book, but she's been great. So, I think there is, a lot of understanding that there's sort of your own network building that needs to happen.
Mhm. I'm starting to think that going into this industry with no expectations, no pressure, might be the way to go. Because
Yeah,
you just don't have any you can just go with the flow.
that's right. And I'm not disappointed
Right.
something doesn't happen.
Because you didn't know it was, air quotes, "supposed to happen."
Exactly. Everything has been, like, incredibly exciting to me.
Yeah,
Every stage of it has been incredibly
yeah,
exciting. I didn't have any idea about what my advance should be. I didn't have any idea, how quickly it would take to
right.
sell the book, and the more I kind of researched that stuff, the more anxious I became, so I just sort of made a
Stopped.
decision to. Yeah.
Yeah. So what are you thinking about writing another one now that you have your foot in this pool?
You get a little bit of a bug of doing,
Uh-huh.
and you get those, creative moments. So I'm about a third through a second one that I've been writing,
Okay.
and it's going so much more slowly.
Really? Are you thinking about it more, do you think?
Yeah, yeah, I
Okay.
think that's a big part of it is that I'm thinking about it more. It's a little bit out of my expertise, so it's requiring some
Mm,
research, cutting it a little bit, not I really think it works for me not to plot completely, but enough that I sort of know where it's going.
where you're going. Yeah.
So it's going much more slowly, but,
Okay.
and I also don't have a week alone in a hotel room.
Right, right, right. I might have just slept though. Kudos to you for taking
Yeah,
that week
well,
and
so we'll see. I think I need
yeah,
to find the time to write it, which might mean taking myself to a
to
hotel
somewhere. And
for.
everybody has their own process. And,
Yeah.
one thing I'm definitely coming to, well, I'm not coming to believe it. I do believe it at this point. Not only does everyone have their own process, but the process can change from book to book. So a lot of times
As I'm
people,
learning, right.
yeah, like a lot of times people will think, well, I need that week away. But then if it were me, I would book the week away and I would spend the whole week watching New Girl reruns and and the whole thing.
Yeah,
And do you watch, are you a TV watcher?
a little bit, yeah.
Have you seen the show Stumble
No,
on Peacock? Oh my God, I
no,
can't. It's one of the funniest things. Another author recommended it to me. It's on Peacock now. They're in their first season and it's a cheer based, which I'm not a cheer person. Like
right.
I was a cheerleader in elementary school, but I was the mascot, so I had to dress up. I don't even want to talk about it. It's like a
That
traumatic.
could be a novel.
It could be, but it wouldn't be good. It would be like thriller, sad, grief. It would be horrible. Anyway, so I'm not drawn to that sort of thing, but I watched the first it's really not about cheer. Like, it's about cheer, but it's not about cheer. It's sorta like The Office is not really about working in an office.
Right,
It's just
right.
so anyway, if you're looking for something to have
I
on
know,
in the
I'm always
background,
something, so
yeah,
that's good.
it's very, very funny. Um, where was I? So, yeah, like, you might just watch TV or, the number of authors with whom I've spoken who write their books 3 minutes at a time, standing in line at the grocery store or sitting in line at a pickup line to pick their kid up from school or whatever. I
That is
that
yeah,
happens too.
yeah, that's amazing. And I wish I could do that because I do have so many of those moments, and if I could
Yeah.
string them together.
Sometimes it's hard for me to get in. I need a minute to get back in.
Yeah,
So if I think of a scene or a line of dialogue, I can write that down. I can jot it down and then come back to it later. I'm not great at just opening my document
right,
and starting knowing I only have 120 seconds
right.
at my disposal.
I'm not either. I mean, that so 2 practices I took from my academic writing that I brought over and that I've been trying to keep even in the creative writing. One is to, always end sort of almost in the middle of a sentence, right? So that
Yes.
it's very clear where you were going, but you don't actually like, don't end at the end of a chapter. Don't at the
Never. I can't
yeah.
exact mhm.
Um,
Yep.
'Cause that helps you pick up. And then the other was a daily practice of a word count.
Okay.
For me, it's 400 words. I don't always hit it, and often it's just, words that I end up deleting at the end of it, like, they're not effective words, but it's just the practice of sitting down and doing it, and
And sometimes I imagine I do something similar. It's not words, it's minutes. So I give myself 10 minutes.
oh,
And
that's a good
sometimes
idea.
I write absolute garbage for 10 minutes, but it gets me to something else
Yeah.
that ends up being used. And sometimes I'll sit down for those 10 minutes, and before I know it, it's been 34 minutes.
Right, because once you're
So
in the flow, yeah, and
it's
that's I always
getting,
tell
yeah,
my students, like, there's no such thing as wasted writing, like, if you're writing
sure.
something and you delete the whole thing, you've learned something about what not to do or what structure didn't work
Yeah.
or what part you wanna keep, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it always leads to something better, so
One of my kids is into woodworking now, which I am as well, so that's a really fun thing, and he was in my garage yesterday, and he looked at the way that he had joined 2 boards together, and he's like, "I can't believe I did this. This was, like, so dumb, and it was such a waste of wood and ti" and I said, "Look, no, it wasn't." I look back at things I've made or written, and I'm horrified, like, "Oh my gosh, I did it that way," but you just had to do it that way to
yeah,
now know, "Okay, we can't that doesn't work.
that's right,
We need something
right.
else," and so it's just part of the process, and it takes a while, I think, to recognize that, and that it's
Yeah, yeah,
you
and
know?
I mean, I think that is one of the ways that having had been a different kind of writer allowed
Yeah,
me to do this. And, my editor and, slashed whole chapters and, they were just gone,
yeah.
and I to be able to look at that, say, "Okay, well, they helped me figure out where this character was going," or gave me even internally a motivation for this moment, right? Even if it's not no longer on the page, I think was really a useful way of
Mhm.
not feeling attached to something that was being taken away.
Well, and seeing it as at least 50% of the part of the process, the editing, as opposed to 2%
Oh yeah, for sure.
helps set my expectations, because if
Mhm.
I send my manuscripts off to an editor thinking, "Oh my gosh, I'm 95% of the way there," I will be wildly
That's
disappointed
right.
when I get that thing back and it's just redlined to the hilt with,
That's right.
things
Yeah.
that need to be changed and switched and moved and cut because they just
Or
serve
to
no
or to take
purpose.
it viscerally. I mean, I think I see this sometimes with students, right? Where you're saying this doesn't work and I'd rewrite this introduction and they're so distressed because they put so
Yeah,
much time and
yeah.
effort into it and you understand that, but say, you know, okay, but now that this is the process. Writing is rewriting. Writing is cutting. Writing is
It's Yep.
yeah.
Yep, all of it. Writing is thinking, it's writing, it's rewriting, it's crying some days. It's
Yeah. Which is
it's
why the AI stuff makes me so nervous, especially with,
yeah.
students using it because they skip some of those steps, right? Even if you use it as a first draft, you've missed that thinking
Yep.
part.
There are so many issues with and I hesitate to dive too much into it because there are so many competing opinions and without context, it's not entirely fair to say with a broad stroke, this is terrible.
Yeah.
In when you're writing, though, a book, whether it's nonfiction, memoir, fiction, it to have AI generate that content, even if you're fixing it, you it's a shortcut that's not I have yet to see that be beneficial. We'll
Yeah,
just
me too. I don't think it
Mhm.
serves the final product,
Right. Right.
right?
The last question I always ask is but I'm gonna ask you it differently, is like, what's something that you've read recently, or what are you reading now that you're loving? And what I'd love to ask you, Jennifer, is what is a medieval book that you think would sort of
Mhm.
re-energize someone's because people might say, "Oh, I don't read that." I'm someone who said, "I don't read historical fiction." And then whomever I was talking to at the time said, "Well, have you read The Women?" And I'd started The Women,
That's
and
fabulous.
she said, "Well, that's historical fiction." And I thought, I never like I was thinking historical fiction was Little House on the Prairie type
Mhm,
thing.
mhm.
So clearly I read historical fiction, but people might think I don't read medieval. That's not my shtick. What's a book that might change their mind on that?
Well, actually from the Middle Ages, a book from
Sure. I mean,
the
whatever.
yeah.
Sure.
I mean,
Yeah.
there's lots of great historical fiction about
Yeah.
the Middle Ages, but I would say, I mean, the Canterbury Tales is not a bad place to start, and
Okay.
it's such a great structure because it is the story of characters going on a pilgrimage, and they're having a storytelling contest, right? So they're
Mhm.
each telling a story, and kind of trying to top the story that came before them. So they're bite-sized and they're all different and the characters are wonderful. So that's one. Another that's a little bit maybe out of a little bit stranger is a book called Mandeville's Travels and
Oh,
Sir John Mandeville's Travels. And he was, and you can find these in translation in modern English. It's easy
thank God.
to access. Um, he was an Englishman who sort of pretended he had this incredible travel life and traveled to India and traveled to, um, Palestine and traveled to all over the on the ocean, and but they weren't real. He like cobbled together different stories and different
Oh.
mythologies, but has these like amazing adventures, and it's really
Hmm.
a window into what the world looked like to an English person in the 13th century, and
Oh,
it's a
that's interesting. Yeah, I now that we're talking about Canterbury Tales, I'm gonna go back and read it because I
yeah,
think it would be interesting to see how I perceive it now versus I don't even remember reading it. I mean, I remember that I did read it. Don't
right.
remember the content at all. So it'd be interesting to see how I absorb it today. I'm
And
sure
some of
it'll
the stories are better than the others, and
of
that's also
course.
part of the charm of it is that you can
Uh-huh.
pick the ones that don't seem great and go to the
Right,
ones
just
that are really fun, you know?
exactly. Well, thank you so much for joining us and telling
Thank
I'm
you so much for
excited for
having
this to come
me.
out. I'm excited to read it because
Yeah.
I love the dual timeline thing. I love seeing how people do that. It feels undoable to me. So
Well, that I have so much respect for writers who can maintain one because I felt like that was part of the,
that's what I'm saying.
thing in my brain was able to move back and forth, so,
Right. I don't
yeah.
that no no, no. I'm just gonna stick with my one timeline right now, my one point of view. Forget about it when people have multiple timelines and multiple points of view.
Yeah,
I'm
yep,
like, "Are you okay?" Like, how do you like, I don't
right.
I don't understand your brain, and I wanna spend all day with you trying to understand how your brain does that when someone writes that way, because I am completely
Well, one of the shifts I did make in the editing process is I sent it to a reader who said, "I think one of these should be in first person." They were both in third person.
Oh,
So I
really?
one of my timelines into first
Okay.
person and, obviously a major change,
Oh,
but,
yeah. Okay, I'm so interested. Well,
uh
I can't wait to see how it does, and I'd love to have you back and talk about how it all unfolded and what happens now with book 2.
Thank you, I'd love to do that, that would be great.